was 25 years old working IT support for a mid-sized tech company in Denver when this happened. It was a Friday night around 9, and I was stuck doing overtime at home. My boss had emailed me that afternoon with a rush project that needed to be done before Monday morning. My wife Sarah had gone to bed early because she had been feeling tired all week. I made myself a strong cup of coffee and settled into my home office with the company laptop. The report was tedious but straightforward. I had been working for about 30 minutes when I decided to check my email to see if my boss had sent any updates. My inbox had the usual stuff, but then I noticed something near the top. The subject line read "Confidential IT Security Alert," and it had a red exclamation mark. I figured it was from our security team about some new protocol. Without thinking twice, I clicked on it. The moment I did, the screen flickered. A new browser window opened automatically and my cursor froze. I tried moving the mouse, but nothing responded. The new window was completely black at first. Then the URL bar showed this insanely long string of random characters and numbers. It definitely was not a normal website. I felt my stomach drop a little. I tried to close the tab by clicking the X button, but it would not respond. I pressed Alt F4. Nothing happened. The screen stayed black for what felt like forever, but was probably only 10 seconds. Then bright green text appeared in the center like something out of an old computer terminal. It said, "Welcome to the truth." A countdown timer appeared below the text, 10:98. My heart started beating faster. I grabbed the laptop and tried to force quit the browser through Task Manager, but the keyboard shortcuts were not working either. 765. I was starting to panic. For 3210, the screen went black again. Then it changed to a new page. This one had a dark gray background. At the top in red letters it said Live Stream Room 7. Below that were two buttons. One said Enter and the other said Leave. I immediately tried clicking Leave. The button did nothing. I clicked it 5 more times. Still nothing. The only button that seemed to work was Enter. My hands were starting to shake. I did not want to click it, but I also did not know what else to do. After hesitating for almost a full minute, I finally pressed Enter. The page loaded into a video player. The screen was black with a small loading icon spinning in the center. I sat there watching it spin for about 30 seconds. Then the video started playing. It showed a room filmed from a high angle like a security camera. The quality was grainy and the lighting was dim. In the middle of the room was a metal folding chair. A man was sitting in it. His hands were tied behind his back with zip ties, and there was duct tape over his mouth. He was wearing a dirty white t-shirt and jeans. His hair was messy and his face looked pale and sweaty. But what got me was his eyes. He was staring directly up at the camera with this look of absolute terror. On the right side of the screen there was a chat box. I could see it said 47 viewers online. The chat was scrolling fast. People were typing things like, "Finally, let's go, room 7 is back." I felt my whole body go cold. This could not be real. It had to be some kind of elaborate prank or one of those fake horror games. But something about the way that man looked at the camera made my skin crawl. His fear looked too real. Suddenly, a figure walked into the frame from the left side. The person was wearing all black clothes and a plain white mask with no features, just smooth white plastic. The figure was carrying a black duffel bag. They set it down next to the chair and unzipped it slowly. The man in the chair started struggling against the zip ties. His muffled screams came through my laptop speakers. The audio was crystal clear. I could hear every detail. His panicked breathing. The sound of the chair legs scraping against the concrete floor. The figure reached into the bag and pulled out a coil of steel wire. They started wrapping the wire around the man's neck. Not tight, just loose loops. The man was thrashing his head side to side trying to get away. The chat exploded with messages. "This is too slow, do it faster, come on." I felt sick to my stomach. My hand moved toward the laptop to slam it shut, but I could not make myself do it. I was frozen. The figure in the mask stopped what they were doing. They turned and looked directly at the camera, right at me. Then text appeared at the bottom of the video. It said, "Viewer 48, do you want us to continue?" Two buttons popped up on the screen, yes and no. My brain took a second to process what I was seeing. Viewer 48, I looked at the viewer count, 48 people online. I was viewer number 48, they were talking to me. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely control the mouse. I moved the cursor to the no button and clicked it over and over. Nothing happened. A timer appeared above the buttons. 10 seconds, 9, 8. I kept clicking no, but the button would not register. 7, 6, 5. Then the timer hit 0 and the screen automatically selected yes. The figure in the mask nodded slowly and went back to the man in the chair. I turned my head away from the screen. I could not watch this. I put my hands over my ears, but I could still hear the sounds coming from the laptop. The man's muffled screaming, the sound of the wire being pulled tight. I squeezed my eyes shut and started breathing fast. My heart felt like it was going to explode out of my chest. After what felt like an eternity, the sound stopped. I was too afraid to look at the screen. I just sat there with my eyes closed, trying not to throw up. Finally, I opened my eyes and looked. The video was still playing, but it had moved to a different angle. I could see the man slumped in the chair. The figure in the mask was standing off to the side. I reached for the power button on the laptop and held it down. The screen stayed on. I held it for 10 seconds. Nothing. The laptop would not shut off. I thought about ripping the battery out, but this was a company laptop with the battery built in. Then I remembered the power cord. I could just unplug it. My hand reached down toward the cord. The second my fingers touched the plug, a notification banner appeared at the top of the screen. It said, "Warning, disconnection detected. Your IP and location have been logged." Below that was my home address. My actual address with the correct street number and everything. I pulled my hand back like I had touched a hot stove. The chat box started going crazy. "Someone lives close to viewer 48. Should we visit? I know that area." My blood turned to ice. These people knew where I lived. The video changed again. Now it showed a different room. The text in the corner said room 3. This room looked similar to the first one. Concrete walls, dim lighting. But this time there was a woman tied to the chair. She looked younger, maybe in her 30s. She had hair and was wearing a blue sweater. She was crying. The mascara was running down her face. Another text message appeared over the video. It said, "Viewer 48, you tried to leave, now watch room 3. I sat there completely paralyzed. I did not know what to do. I felt trapped. If I unplugged the laptop, they had my address. If I kept watching, I was part of whatever this was. Then I heard something, a sound from outside my office. It came from the living room, like footsteps, soft footsteps on the hardwood floor. I went completely still. Sarah was asleep in the bedroom upstairs. She always slept through the night. I glanced at the clock on my desk. It was only 10:15. There was no reason for her to be awake. The footsteps got closer. I could hear them moving down the hallway toward my office door. My door was open, just a crack. I always left it open a little bit for air circulation. Through the crack, I could see the hallway. It was dark because I had not turned on any lights outside the office. Then I saw it. A shadow. Someone was standing in the hallway just outside my door. The shadow was not moving, just standing there. My throat went completely dry. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. I cleared my throat and called out, "Sarah, that you?" No answer. The shadow did not move. I stared at it for what felt like forever. Then my laptop made a notification sound. I looked down at the screen. A new message had appeared. It said, "Viewer 48, look behind you." Every hair on my body stood up. I turned my head slowly to look at the door again. The shadow was gone. I jumped up from my chair and ran to the light switch. I flipped on the hallway lights. Nobody was there. The hallway was completely empty. I ran upstairs to the bedroom. Sarah was still in bed, sound asleep. She had not moved. I stood there trying to catch my breath. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe the stress was making me see things. I went back downstairs to the office. The laptop was still on my desk. The video had stopped playing. Now the screen showed a simple form. At the top it said, "Congratulations, viewer 48, you are invited." Below that were 3 options. The first one said, "I want to join," with smaller text underneath that read, "Become a participant." The second option said, "I want to watch more," with text that read, "Premium access $500." The third option said, "I want to report," with text that read, "We know where you live." At the bottom of the screen was a countdown timer. You have 60 seconds to choose. The timer started. 60, 59, 58. I stood there staring at the screen. I could not join, I could not watch more, but I was terrified to choose report. What would they do if I reported them? They had my address. They could send someone to my house. 50 seconds, 49, 48. I decided I would not choose anything, I would just let the timer run out. Maybe if I did not pick anything, they would leave me alone. 30 seconds left. Then my phone started vibrating in my pocket. I pulled it out. Unknown number. Someone was calling me. I did not answer. I just stared at the phone until it stopped ringing. 20 seconds, 15, 10. I could not take it anymore. I grabbed the laptop with both hands and slammed it shut as hard as I could. I held it closed with all my strength. My hands were shaking. I sat there in the dark holding the laptop shut. 5 minutes passed. Nothing happened. I slowly let go and set the laptop on the desk. I waited another minute, then carefully opened it just a crack. The screen was black. The laptop had powered off. I opened it all the way and pressed the power button. It booted up normally. The login screen appeared like nothing had happened. I logged in and immediately opened the browser history. It was completely empty. I checked my email. The spam email with the security alert was gone. Not in my inbox, not in trash, not anywhere. It was like it had never existed. I sat there shaking. I picked up my phone and searched dark web live stream. I found dozens of articles about illegal streaming sites on the dark web, sites where people paid to watch terrible things. I realized what had happened. That email had been a phishing attack. When I clicked on it, some kind of malware got installed that gave them access to my computer. It connected me to a dark website without me knowing. I had accidentally accessed the dark web through a hidden browser that ran in the background. I did not sleep at all that night. I stayed awake sitting in the living room with all the lights on. The next morning I drove to the office even though it was Saturday. I found our head of IT security and told him I thought my laptop had been compromised. I said I clicked on a suspicious email and the computer started acting weird. I did not tell him what I saw. I could not. He took the laptop and said he would do a full system wipe and reinstall everything. He asked me if I had accessed any sensitive company files. I said no. He seemed satisfied with that. I went home and spent the rest of the weekend installing security cameras around the house. I bought 4 of them from Home Depot and mounted them at all the entry points. I changed every password I had. Email, bank accounts, social media, everything. I enabled 2-factor authentication on everything. For the next 2 weeks, I barely slept. Every sound I heard at night made me jump. Every car that drove down our street made me look out the window, but nothing happened. No strange phone calls, no suspicious people, no threats. Slowly, I started to feel like maybe I was safe. Maybe they had moved on to other victims. It has been 3 months now. Life has gone back to normal mostly. I still have the security cameras up. I still check them obsessively. Sometimes late at night when Sarah is asleep, I think about that man in the chair. I think about the woman in room 3. I wonder if they survived. I wonder how many other rooms there were. I wonder how many other viewers there were that night. I reported what I could remember to the FBI through their online tip system, but I never heard back. I do not know if they investigated or if they even could investigate something like that. The dark web is designed to be untraceable. I never told Sarah what really happened that night. I just said I had clicked on a bad link and got some malware on my work computer. She does not know about the live streams. She does not know that someone might have been in our house. She does not need to carry that fear, but I carry it every single day because I know what is out there. I know what people are capable of. And I know that I came way too close to becoming part of it. That is why I am telling this story now. Not for attention. Not for views. But because people need to understand. The internet is not just memes and social media. There are places online where the worst parts of humanity gather. And sometimes all it takes is one wrong click to stumble into that darkness. So please be careful what you click on. Check every link. Question every email. Because once you see what I saw, you cannot unsee it. and you will spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder wondering if they are still watching you. It was late November, and I was sitting in my dorm room staring at my laptop screen. My final paper for cybercrime and society was due in 2 weeks, and I had absolutely nothing. My roommate Jessica was already asleep on the other side of the room, her soft breathing the only sound breaking the silence. Professor Mitchell had mentioned the deep web during one of his lectures, calling it a fascinating but dangerous place where researchers could find information that didn't exist on the surface internet. The way he described it stuck with me. I kept thinking about it as I scrolled through the same boring academic databases I'd been using all semester. I needed something unique, something that would make my paper stand out. Without really thinking it through, I decided right then that I was going to explore the deep web myself. Not for anything illegal, just to see what kind of research material I could find. It seemed like a reasonable idea at the time. The next morning over breakfast in the dining hall, I told Jessica about my idea. She nearly choked on her coffee. "Are you insane?" she said, keeping her voice low. "You know what kind of people hang out there, right?" "I'm not going to buy drugs or hire a hitman," I said, rolling my eyes. "I just want to check out some academic resources. Professor Mitchell said there are libraries on there with research papers you can't find anywhere else." Jessica looked skeptical, but after I explained that I'd be careful and only visit educational sites, she agreed to help me research how to do it safely. We spent the entire afternoon in the library, looking up guides about Tor browsers and VPN services. By the time we got back to our room that evening, I had downloaded everything I needed. Jessica made me promise 3 times that I wouldn't click on anything suspicious. "Just stick to the academic stuff," she said, "and for the love of God, put tape over your webcam." I laughed it off, but I did feel a flutter of nervousness as I looked at the Tor icon on my desktop. Everything was ready. I decided I'd start exploring that night after Jessica fell asleep. Around 11 that night, with Jessica sound asleep, I opened my laptop and launched the Tor browser. The screen went dark except for a purple onion logo in the center. The interface looked completely different from regular Chrome or Firefox, and something about that made my heart beat faster. I found a forum that listed various onion addresses, organized into categories. There were sections for marketplaces, forums, and thankfully, academic resources. I clicked on the academic section and found a link to something called the Forbidden Library. The page loaded slowly, revealing a simple black background with white text listing hundreds of research papers and books that had been banned or were incredibly rare. I started browsing through titles about cybercrime, digital forensics, and hacking case studies. This was exactly what I needed. I downloaded several PDFs to read later, feeling pretty proud of myself. This wasn't scary at all. It was just a different kind of library. Maybe everyone had been exaggerating about how dangerous this place was. Feeling confident, I decided to explore a few more links before calling it a night. I scrolled back to the main directory and clicked on something labeled General Discussion Forums without really thinking about it. The forum that loaded was nothing like what I expected. The background was pitch black with neon green text, and the posts weren't about academics at all. The thread titles made my stomach turn. Services available, custom jobs, no traces left. I realized immediately that I'd stumbled into something I shouldn't have. But instead of closing it right away, I kept reading. I don't know why. Maybe it was morbid curiosity, or maybe I just couldn't believe what I was seeing was real. One post advertised surveillance packages. The user claimed they could access anyone's webcam without being detected, and they listed prices in Bitcoin. Another post offered to hack social media accounts. Someone else was selling personal information, full dossiers on people complete with addresses and phone numbers. My hands started shaking. I thought about the webcam at the top of my laptop screen. I'd never covered it like Jessica had suggested. These people could actually do what they were claiming. I could be one of their targets right now and not even know it. I slammed the laptop shut and sat there in the dark, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. After a few minutes, I opened it again just enough to check the webcam. The little light next to it was off. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a terrible mistake. I grabbed a roll of tape from my desk and covered the webcam, then tried to go to sleep. I barely slept at all. I woke up exhausted the next morning and immediately told Jessica what happened. She was furious. "I told you not to click on random stuff," she said. "That's exactly the kind of site I warned you about." I know, I said. "But I closed it right away and covered the webcam. We're fine." Jessica didn't look convinced, but we both had classes to get to. I spent the whole day distracted, barely paying attention to my professors. All I could think about was that forum and the people who posted there. When I got back to the dorm that afternoon, I opened my laptop to work on a different assignment. That's when I noticed it. The little green light next to my webcam was on. Just barely, but it was definitely glowing. I hadn't opened any video programs. I checked my running applications. Nothing was using the camera. "Jessica," I called out, my voice shaking, "come look at this." She walked over and saw the light. Her face went pale. "Unplug it," she said, "right now." I shut down the laptop completely and pulled out the battery. We both just sat there staring at it. "We need to take this to the IT center," Jessica said finally. "Tomorrow morning, first thing." I agreed, but I knew I wouldn't sleep that night. Someone had been watching me. Maybe they still were. Every shadow in the room felt like it was hiding something. The next morning, we practically ran to the campus IT center. The technician, a grad student named Marcus, took my laptop to the back room to examine it. 20 minutes later, he came out frowning. "You've got a remote access program running in the background," he said. "I can't tell where it came from, but someone definitely installed it. The only way to be sure it's gone is to completely wipe the hard drive." "Do it," I said immediately. While Marcus worked on formatting my laptop, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. It was an email from an address I didn't recognize. No subject line. I opened it and read the single sentence inside: "I can see you." My hands went numb. I ran back to Marcus and showed him the email. "That's beyond what I can help with," he said. "If someone's threatening you, you might want to contact campus security." Jessica suggested we try posting on a tech forum to see if anyone had dealt with something similar. Back in our room, I used my phone to create a post on explaining what happened without mentioning the deep web specifically. Within a few hours, I received a private message from someone with the username SecreSearcher. "I think I can help you," the message said, "but I need to know exactly what sites you visited." I hesitated, then decided I didn't have much choice. I replied with as much detail as I could remember about the forum and the surveillance post I'd read. SecreSearcher's response came quickly. "You fell into a honeypot. Those forums are set up specifically to trap people who are curious. When you clicked that link, it automatically downloaded malware onto your system. The people running it can access everything. Your camera, your microphone, your files, everything." I felt sick reading those words. "The good news is you formatted your laptop," the message continued. "But your phone might be compromised too if it was ever connected to the same network. You need to check it immediately." SecreSearcher sent me a detailed list of steps to scan my phone and remove any suspicious programs. Then came the really scary part. "These people collect information to blackmail their victims," they wrote. "Do you have anything sensitive on your devices? Bank information, private photos?" I did. I had photos from high school, my banking app, saved passwords for everything. My entire life was on that laptop. "Change every password you have," SecreSearcher instructed. "Contact your bank and freeze your cards. And whatever you do, never go back to the deep web unless you know how to protect yourself. People like you are exactly who these predators target. You're curious but inexperienced. Easy prey." The message ended with a link to a cybersecurity guide for beginners. I spent the next 2 hours following every instruction SecResearcher had given me. I felt violated and stupid and terrified all at once. I did everything SecResearcher told me to do. I factory reset my phone, changed all my passwords, and called my bank to freeze my debit card and get a new one issued. Jessica helped me monitor my email and social media accounts for any signs of suspicious activity. For 3 days, nothing happened. I started to think maybe I'd gotten lucky, that maybe I'd caught it in time. Then SecResearcher messaged me one last time. "I've been monitoring some of the forums where your information was being circulated," the message said. "Someone tried to sell your data. I reported it and got the listing removed. You're safe now, but I need you to understand something. The deep web isn't a playground for curious students. It's a place where people who know how to protect themselves do business. You went in there completely exposed. You're lucky this didn't end much worse." I thanked them and asked why they'd help me at all. Why spend so much time on a stranger? The response was simple: "Because I made the same mistake when I was your age. Someone helped me then. I'm just passing it forward. Stay safe and stay off tour." After that, SecResearcher went offline and never responded again. I thought about that message for a long time. Eventually, I did write my paper, but instead of using research from the deep web, I wrote about my own experience. I detailed everything that happened, how easily I'd been compromised, and what I learned about online security. Professor Mitchell gave me an A and used my paper as a cautionary tale for his next class. He said it was the most honest assessment of cybercrime risk he'd ever read from a student. Jessica still brings it up sometimes, usually when I'm about to do something impulsive. "Remember the deep web," she'll say, and I do. I think about it every time I go online now. I think about how quickly curiosity can turn into a nightmare and how lucky I was that someone cared enough to pull me out of it. I never went back. I never will. Some doors are better left closed. I never thought my IT skills would almost get me killed. I was 23, living alone in a small apartment in the suburbs, doing freelance security testing for small businesses. The pay was decent, and I had plenty of free time. My roommate from college, Jake, introduced me to Tor browser about 6 months ago. He showed me how to access forums where security experts shared tools and techniques. At first, I only used it for work-related research, downloading penetration testing software and reading about vulnerabilities. But that changed one Thursday night when boredom and curiosity mixed in the worst possible way. It was a Thursday evening and I had just finished a project way ahead of schedule. My client was happy, the invoice was sent, and I had absolutely nothing to do. I sat there in my apartment, staring at my laptop screen, feeling restless. That's when I remembered all those stories Jake used to tell me about the darker corners of the web, places where you could find things that shouldn't exist. Red rooms, stolen data marketplaces, hackers for hire. Jake had always warned me to stay away from those sites. He said I should only use Tor for legitimate work, nothing else. But sitting there that night, curiosity started eating at me. I thought to myself, I'm an IT professional. I know how to stay safe online. What's the harm in just looking around? So I opened my laptop and started searching on the regular internet for links to these forbidden places. I spent about 2 hours clicking through sketchy forums and outdated lists. Most of the links I found were either dead or obvious scams. The sites that did work were disappointingly tame, just forums talking about conspiracy theories or selling fake IDs. I was about to give up and call it a night when I decided to try one last place. I went to a tech board on 4chan, scrolling through recent posts. That's when I found it. Buried in a thread about network security was a comment that seemed out of place. The user had posted what looked like random gibberish, just a string of letters and numbers. It took my tired brain a second to recognize it, but then it clicked. It was a base 64 encoded link. I copied the string, decoded it, and pasted the result into my Tor browser. The page took forever to load. I'm talking almost 5 minutes of just staring at a loading screen. I nearly closed the tab, thinking it was another dead end. But then, finally, the page appeared. The header read Cybermerc Digital Destruction Services in bright green letters against a black background. The logo was a Guy Fawkes mask with streams of Matrix-style code falling behind it. I laughed out loud. This had to be fake. But as I scrolled down, I stopped laughing. The site had a professional-looking menu with different services listed. Account takeover, data theft, identity destruction, financial ruin, complete digital erasure. Each service had a price listed in Bitcoin, ranging from half a Bitcoin to 5 whole Bitcoins. There was a detailed how it works section explaining their process. They claimed they could hack into anything. Email accounts, social media, bank accounts, work systems, even government databases. The testimonials section had blurred screenshots of completed jobs and reviews from supposed clients. The whole thing looked incredibly professional, almost too professional. Part of me thought this has to be an elaborate scam, but another part of me wondered, what if it's real? I decided not to order anything, obviously, but I bookmarked the page thinking I'd show Jake later and we could laugh about it. Then I went back to the 4chan thread to see if there were any other interesting links. But when I refreshed the page, the comment was gone. Not just deleted, the entire user account had been banned. That gave me chills, but I shrugged it off and closed my laptop. The next night, Friday, Jake came over around 8 with a 6-pack of beer and a large pizza. We sat on my couch eating and watching some show I can't even remember. After we finished eating, I told him about the website I'd found. I pulled up the bookmark and showed him the page. Jake's face went serious immediately. He said, "Dude, you need to stay away from sites like this." I'm not joking. I laughed and said it was obviously fake, but Jake shook his head. He told me about a guy he knew in college who ordered something as a joke from one of these sites, and within a week, the guy's entire identity was leaked online. Address, phone number, social security number, everything. Then they started blackmailing him. I felt a cold twist in my stomach, but I tried to play it cool. I said, "Come on, I didn't order anything, I just looked." Jake finished his beer and stood up. He said, "Just delete the bookmark and forget about it, man, trust me." He left around 11 and I promised I would. But after he left, I cracked open another beer, then another, then another. By the time I finished the last one, I was feeling pretty drunk and stupidly confident. I opened my laptop again and navigated back to that site. I thought to myself, I'll just test if the order form actually works, just to see. It'll be funny. So I clicked on the financial ruin package, which cost 2.5 Bitcoin. The form asked for target details. Name, address, email, bank information. In my drunk state, I thought it would be hilarious to put my own information in, like a joke, like I was pranking myself. I filled out every field with my real details, giggling to myself the whole time. When I got to the payment section, there was a QR code for their Bitcoin wallet. Now, here's where things get fuzzy. I don't remember this part clearly, but I must have pulled out my phone, opened my work Bitcoin wallet where I kept my freelance payments, and scanned that code. The next thing I vaguely remember is seeing a confirmation screen that said target confirmed. Operation begins in 24 hours. Then I passed out on the couch. I woke up Saturday morning around 10 with the worst hangover I'd had in years. My head was pounding, my mouth tasted like death, and my laptop was still open on the coffee table. The Tor browser was still running. I groaned and reached for the laptop, planning to close it and go back to sleep. But then I saw my email was open, and there was a message at the top of my inbox. The subject line read, "Order confirmation Cybermerc services." My heart dropped into my stomach. I clicked on the email with shaking hands. The message showed all the details: target name, my name, service purchased, financial ruin, payment status confirmed, 2.5 Bitcoin. I immediately opened my Bitcoin wallet app on my phone. Sure enough, 2.5 Bitcoin had been sent out at 2:17 in the morning. That was about $75,000. $75,000. That was months of savings from my freelance work. Gone. I started panicking. I tried to reply to the email, begging them to cancel the order, saying it was a mistake. But the email bounced back with an error message. I tried to access the website again using my bookmark, but the link was dead. Just a blank page. I searched through my browser history frantically, but every link to that site was now broken. I called Jake, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I remembered he mentioned he was going camping this weekend with his girlfriend. I tried to track the Bitcoin transaction, but it had already been run through a tumbler, making it impossible to trace. I sat there on my couch, head in my hands, trying to convince myself this was still just a scam. They took my money and ran, that's it. They won't actually do anything. But then at 3 in the afternoon, I got an email from my bank. Suspicious login attempt detected from an IP address in Russia. Please verify this was you. My phone buzzed a second later. New text message. Your two-factor authentication code is 79321, but I hadn't requested any code. I wasn't trying to log into anything. I jumped up and ran to my laptop. I checked my email account settings. There were 3 failed login attempts from different IP addresses in the past hour: Poland, Romania, and Vietnam. My hands started shaking. This was real. They were really trying to get into my accounts. I spent the next 2 hours changing every password I could think of. Bank accounts, email, social media, work portals, everything. I enabled every security feature available. But deep down, I knew if these people were professionals, a few password changes weren't going to stop them. That evening, I was too paranoid to relax. I closed all the curtains in my apartment and kept checking the locks on my doors and windows. Around 7, I went to the kitchen to make some dinner. While I was standing at the stove, I glanced out the window above the sink. That's when I saw it. A black van parked directly across the street. It had heavily tinted windows, so dark I couldn't see inside at all. I'd never seen that van in my neighborhood before. I stood there watching it for a full 30 minutes. Nobody got in or out. The van just sat there, engine off. My rational brain tried to tell me it was just a coincidence. Maybe someone was visiting a neighbor, but my gut told me otherwise. Finally, I decided I needed to check it out. I grabbed my phone and a canister of pepper spray I kept in my drawer. I took a deep breath and walked out my front door. The street was quiet. A few porch lights were on, but nobody else was outside. I started walking toward the van, my heart hammering in my chest. When I was about 10 feet away, the van's engine suddenly roared to life. The headlights flicked on, blinding me for a second. Then it peeled away from the curb and sped down the street. I tried to see the license plate, but it was too dark and the van was moving too fast. I stood there in the middle of the empty street, feeling stupid and terrified at the same time. I walked back inside and locked the door behind me. Then I went around and checked every window lock, every door lock twice. At 8 o'clock, my phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. No words, just an image. I opened it and felt my blood run cold. It was a photo of me, standing outside on the street looking toward where the van had been parked. The photo had been taken from inside the van. Below the image was a single line of text. You made a purchase. We deliver results. Enjoy the show. My hands went ice cold. I wanted to call the police, but what would I even say? I ordered a cyber attack on myself while drunk, and now someone's watching me. They'd think I was insane or involved in something illegal. I decided I had to handle this myself. I triple-checked all the locks again and sat on my couch with a baseball bat next to me. At 10 o'clock that night, I was a nervous wreck. I had every light in the apartment turned on. The TV was playing loudly, some action movie I wasn't really watching. I just needed the noise to feel less alone. Then, without warning, the internet cut out. I looked at my Wi-Fi router and all the lights were red. I grabbed my phone to use mobile data, but there was no signal, not even one bar. It was like all my connections to the outside world had been jammed. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment door. Not loud knocking or banging, just quiet, deliberate steps getting closer. I grabbed the baseball bat and moved slowly toward the door. I looked through the peephole, but the hallway light was out too. All I could see was darkness. I stood there, frozen, barely breathing. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I waited. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a full minute. My heart was beating so hard I thought it might explode. Then the footsteps started again, moving away this time, getting quieter until they disappeared completely. I stayed at the door for another 5 minutes before my internet and phone signal suddenly came back. Immediately, my phone started buzzing nonstop with notifications. I looked at the screen and felt sick. My bank account had been locked due to suspicious activity. My credit card showed 5 charges at different stores in different states, all made in the same minute. My email password had been changed and I was locked out. My social media accounts were posting spam links. My work client portal showed a login from China. Everything was falling apart at once. I tried to regain control, resetting what I could, calling my bank's fraud line, but there were too many problems happening too fast. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't want to answer, but something made me pick up. The voice on the other end was distorted, robotic, and cold. It said, "You purchased financial ruin. We are professionals. This is just the beginning. Check your mailbox." Then the line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to stay inside and pretend I hadn't heard that. But another part knew I had to see what was in the mailbox. I grabbed my phone, set it to record audio, picked up the pepper spray and the baseball bat, and opened my front door. The hallway was empty and silent. I moved quickly to the mailbox, opened it with shaking hands, and saw a black envelope inside. I grabbed it and ran back into my apartment, slamming and locking the door behind me. I sat on my couch and stared at the black envelope for a long moment before opening it. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped it. Inside was a USB drive and a single piece of paper with handwritten text. The note said, "We could have destroyed everything. Your bank accounts, credit score, professional reputation, legal records. We have access to all of it. But this was a lesson. You ordered this on yourself. Never play with services you don't understand. This is your one warning. The USB contains proof of every vulnerability in your digital life. Fix them. And delete Tor. If we see you again on our site or any similar platform, we will finish what you paid for. Consider your $75,000 tuition for the most important lesson of your life." I didn't want to plug the USB into my main computer, so I dug out an old laptop I hadn't used in years, one that had never been connected to the internet. I booted it up and inserted the USB. What I found made my stomach turn. There were dozens of files, screenshots of every password I'd ever used, including ones I thought I'd deleted years ago. A complete list of every online account I had, even ones I'd completely forgotten about. Copies of personal documents I'd scanned and saved. Tax returns, medical records, work contracts. There were access logs showing they'd hacked into security cameras around my apartment building. They had footage of me coming and going for the past week. But the worst part was a folder labeled webcam. I opened it and saw video clips. They were from my laptop's camera. The clips showed me working, eating, sleeping, all filmed from my own computer. They'd been watching me for days. There was also a document titled Full Identity Destruction Plan. It detailed exactly how they could have ruined my entire life. Fake criminal records they could create, bank accounts they could drain, how they could get me fired from every future job, how they could make me unhireable, unloanable, completely erased from normal society. As I sat there reading through everything, I realized just how completely they had me. They could have destroyed everything and I wouldn't have been able to stop them. Then, as if to prove their point, something strange happened. I checked my phone and saw new notifications. My bank account access had been restored. The fraudulent charges on my credit card had been reversed. My email password had been reset back to my control. My social media accounts had been cleaned. Every single problem from the past few hours had been fixed. They were showing me they had total control. They could break everything and put it back together whenever they wanted. I didn't sleep at all that night. I spent hours going through my entire digital life. I uninstalled Tor and every related program. I changed every single password to long, random combinations and saved them in a password manager. I enabled two-factor authentication on everything I could find. I put tape over my laptop's webcam. I installed new security software. I even filed a police report the next morning claiming I'd been the victim of attempted fraud, though I left out all the details about the dark web. When Jake got back from camping on Monday, I told him everything. His face went pale. He said, "Man, you're lucky to be alive. I've heard stories of people who messed with the wrong sites and just vanished. Nobody ever heard from them again. That made me feel even worse, but also grateful. 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. I checked my Bitcoin wallet and saw an incoming transaction. Half a Bitcoin worth about $15,000. There was a message attached. Professional courtesy. Don't waste second chances. They'd returned part of my money, not all of it, but enough to be a final gesture. I stared at that message for a long time. These people could have taken everything. My money, my identity, my future, maybe even my life. But they chose to teach me a lesson instead, and I learned it. I stopped all dark web activities completely. I focused only on legitimate security work for real clients. I kept that USB drive locked in a drawer as a reminder of how close I came to losing everything because of stupid curiosity and drunken arrogance. Sometimes, late at night, I still feel paranoid. I still check my locks twice. I still worry about strange cars on my street. But I'm alive, my life is intact, and I'll never make that mistake again. The dark web isn't a playground. It's not somewhere you explore for fun. Real people operate there, dangerous people, and they don't forget. I got a second chance, and I'm not going to waste it. That $75,000 lesson was the most expensive education I ever received, but it might have also been the most valuable. Because now I know that some doors should never be opened, and some curiosities should never be satisfied.